everyone, and welcome to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails, the weekly podcast that helps you grow your business, improve your life, and enjoy yourself along the way. I'm your host, Alan Langer, and every week we try to bring you the best thought leaders, the best business leaders, and the best minds out there to help you succeed in business and in life. So sit back, relax, grab your pad, your pen, and your favorite beverage, and enjoy the next episode of Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. This is your host, Alan Langer, with episode number 28. Believe it or not, we are at episode 28. And tonight we got a little bit of a different twist for you. We're going to take a little bit of a side road. We're still going to talk about marketing and sales, but I think we're going to get into the psychology of it a little more than we normally do, because I've got a business growth strategist, entrepreneur expert, Tim Croll, with us tonight. Tim has become a virtual friend of mine, and he's been attending a lot of my networking functions. Really cool guy. I've already heard him speak twice. You're really going to enjoy this tonight. So before we get to Timmy, a couple of housekeeping items. One, just so everyone knows, the podcast website is marketingandsalespodcast.com, marketingandsalespodcast.com. for the Ask Alan segment. And I thank everyone for sending in questions every single week. It's been awesome. But go to the contact section of the website, send me a question. And if I read your question on the air for myself and my guest, you get a free autographed signed copy of my book. And we've got a good question coming up from someone from Manhattan tonight. So stay tuned for that. So without further ado, Tim Croll, welcome to the show tonight. How are you?
Woohoo! So I got to be a little transparent and authentic with you. I am a morning bird. I am not a night owl, and I got to feed off of your energy. So you're going to have to give me some extra on that one, because I'm usually like all my creativity is in the morning, but we're going to do it because I can feel the energy already building.
Well, was that a good intro? Was there enough energy in that intro right there?
Absolutely. I mean, we're going to just keep rocking and rolling on this. So it's fun.
Well, here, I'll give you some energy right now. So I always ask my guests what they're drinking. And tonight I am drinking Jameson cold brew whiskey and coffee.
Whoa.
So I've got a little coffee.
All combined in one, huh?
All combined in one. So I will be wide awake when we're done with this. We're recording this at 9:30 at night on East Coast time. So Tim, thank you for doing that for me. What do you have, sir? What are you drinking?
I've got Captain and Coke. That's my go-to drink.
In a mason jar. I love it.
In a mason jar. We are up north, the great outdoors. Love the adventure. Got to be a mason jar.
Virtual cheers to you, sir. There you go.
Cheers, man.
All right. Well, welcome to the show. Thanks for stopping in tonight. Really appreciate it. So let's get into this. So we met.
Wait, though. And when you say cheers, if you don't drink after cheers, it's bad.
Oh, I didn't drink. I'm sorry.
You got to drink. You got to drink after cheers.
I was so excited to talk. I forgot to cheer.
I was one of the things, like, I was early on in business. They said every time somebody says you got to drink, or else somebody else is going to say it's bad luck. So I was like, okay.
Thank you for the reminder. And I needed it anyway. So now let's get into it. Now that we both had our cheers and our sip. So tell me, I want to know tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what makes you an expert and as a business growth strategist and helping people, with how they kind of navigate their business and their lives around their business, stuff like that.
Yeah. To be quite frank, it's a school of hard knocks. Mm-hmm. When you look at life and you look at the experiences and things that you've gone through, frankly, at times I look back and I recall coming out of a hard time or a hard situation, bankruptcy, a loss of a house, getting fired, getting let go. And during that exact moment, I can say I'm not thankful, and I'm actually angry, and I'm just bleeding out of my soul the fact that I don't have any value. And it wasn't until I got further along that I look back and I can truly, at this point in time, say I'm very thankful for all those experiences, whether it was my very first business, which failed miserably, or the fact that I ended up helping build it was a product channel inside of a corporation that they sold off, and then I got let go, or getting sued by 2 or 3 or 4 different people. All of those things, when I was going through them, were not pleasant. They were not nice. But coming out of them, and I started looking back on all of the lessons that I've learned, all of the contacts, all of the networking, all of the things that I was able to accumulate, created all of this experience. And out of the experience is the knowledge. And from that knowledge, now you have the ability to not only look at what is knowledgeable, what are the facts, but now you have the wisdom because of the experience. And so the wisdom allows you to apply all of the things that you've learned based on those experiences. So that's it in a nutshell. I mean, I could go through all the little details and people like stories. I get that. But at the end of the day, it's the school of hard knocks.
Wow. Well, you know what? And I've always said, I'd rather be taught by someone who's been through the trenches and has failed a lot than someone who's never, broken a nail or skinned a knee or something. So that's cool. And, I can tell just by knowing you for the last couple of months and what I've heard you speak about and on LinkedIn, your stuff and what you say is resonated with me and a lot of people who I've spoken to have heard you talk. So it's good stuff. And I know we were chatting in our pre-call about conversations and how to be, we were talking about confidence and conversations, but you said you had 3 things you wanted to chat about with regard to, I guess maybe I'm saying it wrong, but preparing yourself for a conversation. Or tell me a little bit about what you meant by that.
So basically I call this is the perfect setup. And you can fill in the blank for whatever you want after that, because if we're talking to sales guys, I'll say this is the perfect setup for your sales pitch. Mm-hmm. Or if I'm talking to a leader that's about to step into a meeting, this is the perfect setup for your meeting. This is the perfect setup for your networking event. This is the perfect setup. Basically, it's the ability to be able to have a lead in, because nobody really wants to sit down and hear your pitch. It's just not going to happen.
Never.
There's no relationship. There's nothing there. There's no feelings. And so this is what I classify as the perfect setup for whatever it is that you're about to enter into, especially when you're communicating with another human. And there's so many examples out there that I could go back through. There's a lot of preachers that do this. There's a lot of teachers. There's different coaches. I've had experience with Lou Holtz. I don't know if you know who he is. He was the coach of Notre Dame. Of
course.
Yeah, incredible. Yeah, incredible coaching. And then you have also different styles. But one thing that they all have in common is that they pretty much follow a lot of these same patterns. And so looking at all of these things and putting these all together, basically what I did is I kind of boiled it down and said, okay, and this is what I absolutely love, by the way. I love taking all of this complex theory and boiling it down and making something simple for somebody to understand. Mm-hmm. So stop me if I get going too fast, because sometimes I lived around Philly and I've got that New Jersey East Coast thing. I get going sometimes. I get excited.
Jersey, I know, I get it. Yep. That's why we get along.
Yeah. So, but basically, this is where there's two key components. But underneath of these components, you've got these 3 different steps, and then you've got kind of the results that come out of that. So let's start out with the fact of the very, very first thing that you have to do is you have to be able to meet your people where they're at. And there's a lot of different topics. There's a lot of guys out there that have talked about this. I honestly don't remember where I heard it first, but there's a scale of knowledge. You've become an expert in your field, and that's good. You've learned about your product. You've learned about your sales, your service, whatever that ends up. And you have a knowledge scale of, let's say, an 8, 9, or a 10. You walk into a home, you walk into a networking meeting or whatever. The people that you're going to be talking to only have a knowledge skill of about a 1, 2, if they've even heard about you, if they even have any interest in what it is that you're selling or talking about or trying to get through to be able to teach. So the very, very first thing is you have to acknowledge that there is an interest. And the way that you do that is you look around for what are the common bonds that create that interest. Now, this is sometimes tricky. So when you're walking into a house, if you do a sales call, do something along those lines, it's the fact that you have to find out what it is that they've been pursuing. What is that interest that they've had questions about? And typically it shows up in part of their journey conversations. It shows up in things that they have around their house. For example, I can tell, I just look at your screen and I can already see points of interest that I could start talking about just looking at what you've got hanging on the wall. And this is true with everybody. So for example, and I'll give you a really down-to-earth example on finding their interest. The first thing that I do when I'm in a networking type meeting is I don't sit there and I don't ask people, what do you do? And that's the most common question that we have across every networking meeting. It's the most common thing that I've heard. Everybody wants to know what I do. Or somebody else is asking, what do you do? And so what I've switched and what I've changed is I ask people, tell me about your story or tell me about your journey. And oftentimes what happens is they step back and they're just like, I don't really know what you mean. They come there prepared to be able to answer what they do, but they're not really there and prepared to tell about their story. So I get all kinds of answers. But the really, really cool thing is it opens up into an ability for me to hear more of the underlying need of what it is that they're looking for. Because I'm asking about their journey. So I'm paying attention to what some of these needs are. So that's the very first part, is just to acknowledge, like, hey, I hear that there's an interest here, or I hear that there's a need here. So it's acknowledging that interest.
Well, what I would not interrupt you, but what you just said to me made me feel a good feeling, because if someone asked me that question at a networking function, I'd be like, what a cool question. This guy actually wants to know about me, not just what I do. I'm more than what I'm doing. So what is your journey? I'd be like, wow, what a great question. Well, and I would answer it, but I would answer like, you're really cool. And you immediately would go above everyone else. So that's a really cool way to do that.
Yeah. It immediately starts to build a relationship.
Yeah. Immediately.
I don't have to say anything about me.
Yeah.
Like zero. I don't have to tell you who I am. I don't have to give you my name. I don't have to tell you what I'm selling. I don't have to do any of that stuff. But what it does is that it opens up, and it all of a sudden begins that relationship. And people in sales, they teach you, get the people to talk about themselves, get the people to find it, because that's the way that this thing that they're most proud of. Right. So that's the first step that I look at, is how do you not acknowledge your interest, but you have to find that interest. So acknowledging their interest and acknowledging that. So this is the psychology part, acknowledging that they are more valuable as an individual outside of what they do.
Yep. Couldn't agree more.
Yeah, because when you look at that, so many times our society puts so much pressure on people to perform, to succeed based on what they do rather than who they are. And then that's why we have a lot of challenges when somebody loses a job, gets fired, all of those things that happen. And I know some of the questions we're going to be asking about is confidence. If you only attach your value to what you do and you get let go, or you get fired, or you fail, man, boom, it's a big hit to your self-worth.
It's a big hit. Yeah, absolutely.
A huge hit. So that's why I want to associate, and I want to look at, acknowledge the interest, and I want to find out about your journey. I want to find out about who you are. Because even if, and I've had this happen, even if the next day you get fired, because I was talking to an insurance guy, he got fired, he got let go, and then he opens up another shop for, I don't know, social marketing. It's not because I'm not going to stop talking to him because he's no longer insurance. I'm still going to talk to him. I'm still going to find out what he's doing and how he's working. And, I want to know a little bit about his value systems and all that kind of stuff. And it makes such a big difference. So huge. That's the first thing, is acknowledging their interest. I thought you were going to ask a question, so I paused. No.
I was like, I want to hear the second thing. I'm like totally enthralled. No, you're 1,000% right. It's all about, Amy Kay Hutchins. I had her on my podcast, and I released that today. And her big thing was, don't lead with connection, not with pitch. You can't lead with pitch. You have to lead with the connection. So it's
100%. 100%.
It's almost the same concept. So, all right, get to number 2. Sorry about that.
All right. So the next one is, you point toward the question that they're asking, what they need to know and what they're chasing, but they're chasing out of ignorance. All right. So here's the thing, and this is a really big key element. There's a lot of, I hate cars. I am not a mechanic in any way, shape, or form. And so when I'm talking to somebody, if I'm trying to buy a car, I ask the most ignorant questions that could possibly be. And if you're a car guy, you'd be like, dude, this guy's whacked. But it's out of my ignorance that I'm asking some of these questions. Right. My real need is this car going to serve and be reliable to get me from point A to point B? Is it something that I can trust to be able to have my family in? Those are the kinds of the real needs that I have. But when I come in, I'm asking more along the lines of, well, how much does it cost? And do I put gas in it? Right. Is it a diesel? Is it a standard? I mean, like, I don't know what the heck to ask. And so I'm asking and I'm chasing and I'm trying to figure this stuff out, but yet I'm ignorant of what I really should be asking.
Okay.
So when you're looking at this, basically what you're doing is you want to point them towards the question that they're asking, but they really don't know how to ask that question. And the only way to do that is by what we said in the first part, is to acknowledge that interest and to be able to start building that relationship.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll give you another example. And this happens all the time in sales. Somebody comes to me as a consultant and they say, I need more leads. I need more marketing. I go, okay, here we go. I've heard this again. And that's the question that they're always asking. The challenge comes in is, are they able to handle the leads? Are they able to handle the marketing? Because sometimes if you all of a sudden just increase the leads, you increase their close percentage, you increase all these things, there is a possibility that they cannot produce enough product in order to fulfill all of the sales that are now being done.
Mm-hmm.
If their pricing isn't right, they may be selling at a loss. And if you're not checking on these things going back and forth, they're pursuing the marketing and the leads and the sales out of a little bit of ignorance. Now, I'm not trying to offend anybody, but you just have to understand that there is that level of knowledge that we talked about. They're still down around a 1 or a 2.
So you're saying to try to find a way for them to ask that ignorant question so that you know what their level of knowledge is?
I'm saying that you need to answer that core question that they're not asking.
Oh, I see.
So let me go back. Let me go back to the car illustration.
Okay.
I'm not going to sit there and I'm not going to say, is this going to be safe for my family?
Right.
But by the salesman, if he's working with me and he starts to ask about what I'm using the vehicle for and how I'm operating, and he asks me about my journey, and he finds out that my kids and my wife are most important and the highest value that I have in regards to my family, I don't really care about the money so much. I care about their safety.
Right.
And so
but you don't want to ask the question because you feel like it's an ignorant question. So he's answering it for you. I see. Okay.
Correct.
That's
Correct.
very cool. Okay.
Correct. That's what I'm saying. So it's a pointing towards answering that question. It's not necessarily getting them to voice that, because quite frankly, a lot of us men are not going to say that. We're not going to, we're too ego driven or whatever you want to call it, narcissistic, whatever. But we're not going to always, especially, you've been in sales. How many times you walked into a place and you're like, I know what they need, but they're not asking me for what they need.
Right. So, exactly. They're going to, or you're in front of a couple and usually the husband wants to pretend he knows everything and he literally knows nothing, but he wants to fluff his feathers in front of his wife or his partner. And you just got to understand that and go with it and answer the questions anyway. Right.
So here is the catalyst for all of the stuff that we're leading up. And this is the third thing about meeting them where they're at.
Okay.
You have to you capture their interest by using something that's familiar to introduce something that's unfamiliar.
Okay.
So the way that you go ahead.
No, I said, so explain that.
So basically what I'm doing, again, if I was going to be talking with you, I would try to relate that once upon a time up there. I don't know if it's in the background there. I don't know if that's because of a fairy tale. I would ask you immediately about that story. What's going on behind that story? Because there is meaning. Nobody puts a phrase up on their wall without having some kind of a meaning.
Yep.
And then you've got the safari over there with the elephant. And I know a little bit about if the elephant's trunk is turned up in the picture, it brings good luck. I don't know if that's part of anyway, there's all of these things that we could immediately connect on.
Right.
And then what I'm going to look at is how can I incorporate these things, whether it's what you're drinking, the coffee and the whiskey, or the elephants and the stories or the once upon a time. What is it that you're familiar with that I can bring in and then introduce my concept to you by using that familiarity? By using that familiarity.
Wow. Okay. That's really cool.
Yeah. So in this case, in this situation, basically, I'm trying to find a story that you can relate to. Why do you think, I shouldn't say why, but when you look at all of the parables and all of the fables, what they've done is they've introduced a concept through a story.
Yes.
And that's where the fables have been excellent, because we teach our kids ethics and we teach them moral values by introducing them to something that is familiar to them.
Right.
And it's the same principle, whether we're talking to our children or we're talking to a business partner or we're talking to a potential customer or a potential client.
Right.
Yep. Is you want to meet them on that same ground. You want to find something that's familiar to introduce something that's unfamiliar.
And you can do that a number of ways. One, once upon a time, you tell a story. Why are children's books so popular? Because they're teaching kids morals through the guise of a story. They're not just saying do good, don't hit your friends or whatever it is. It's a story to teach that. So yeah, that's all that comes together. That's good stuff right there.
Yeah. So that's all part of meeting them where they're at, is obviously acknowledging their interest. And that's the part of the question, how you do that. Then you point towards the questions that they are not willing to ask, or that there are underneath the questions, the subterranean type questions. And then you capture that interest, you pique that curiosity by tying together a familiar with what they're unfamiliar with.
Love it.
And I mean, I could give you tons of examples of this and how I used to do it. But one of the things that I think is the best one is I used to sell windows. That was one of my things that I always sold. And we used to have this thing that if you had a 1/4 of an inch crack or an 1/8 of an inch crack that went all the way around your windows, a gap, that is like you have a hole in the side of your house the size of a brick.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
The concept is they can't figure out the fact that that hole or that crack is really that big, but they can understand the brick because the brick is sitting right there in their fire.
Right.
And if I say you've got a hole in the side of your house the size of a brick, it's like, oh my goodness.
Right.
So you need to get these windows taken care of because it's seeping in air. It's the size of a brick. And that was me taking something of size, shape that was familiar versus just this thin, an 1/8 of an inch is not that big.
No.
But in the average window, the 3x5 window, an 1/8 of an inch all the way around is the size of a brick.
Right. When you add it all together. I did the same thing when I sold windows. I used to use the cell phones as an example. Like say, if you added together all the size holes of air in this window, it would equal the size of a cell phone. And then I would literally take my cell phone, I would stick it on the wall. I'm like, that's the hole in your wall 365 days a year. And they'd be like, holy crap, because when you look at the window and all these little pinholes in it, doesn't mean anything. When you put them all together, it means a lot. So it's a great example.
Yeah, exactly. And then you start counting out the windows. And that's what I mean by that is you take something that they're familiar with as far as like that size of the cell phone or the brick or whatever.
Yeah.
That size aspect gives them a lot more clarity because you're now using something that they're familiar with.
Yep.
They're not familiar with an 1/8 of an inch, a 1/4 of an inch, or whatever it is. They're not familiar with that, but they are familiar with the size of a cell phone, size of a brick.
Yeah. That's awesome.
You can do that. Go ahead.
No, I said that's awesome. It's such an important thing. And it also, it helps people. It helps the sales rep, or hopefully will help the sales rep, who's the technical rep, who gets all caught up in the feature dump and the feature benefits. And this window has, all this weather stripping and it does this. And all this is going to fill up those little holes. That's going to, you lost them. Their eyes are glossing over. Yeah. All I had to say was, if you put in our window, it's going to fill in that cell phone hole in your wall. Didn't matter how it was going to do it. Didn't matter about the double pane glass or the weather stripping. As long as we filled in that hole, they were comfortable. And that's as easy. It literally could be as easy as that. And most sales reps don't understand it. They think that they have to explain every single feature and benefit on every single product that they have. And they really.
Yeah, 100%, 100%. And so let's just apply this because there's some people out there I'm sure are teachers or speakers. There's probably people out there that are leading meetings or trying to do training or any of these other things that are out there. These types of principles apply on every level. Mm-hmm. And so, for example, when I'm talking about how to find the diamond in the rough, I use rocks. And I've used this illustration. I've got Petoskey stones. I'm kind of a rock hound. I use that to teach because I'm using rocks to be able to teach a concept.
Okay.
And then the other aspect is when I step into an organization, if the first time I'm there, I want to know more about who those people are and what do they love. Are they donut people or are they health food people? I mean, that makes a big difference. I'm not going to show up with donuts if, I can't believe you did that. We're only health food. You got to know who they are and then be able to relate a lot of these things when you step into a meeting and say, okay, here's the concept. And it's just like you fill in the blank because it's something that they're familiar with.
Right.
And that works on every meeting. It works on every presentation, every teaching. Working and talking in parables and stories makes the difference of whether you're going to get your point across or so that it can be understandable. Sorry.
Well, I've always said, when I'm giving some training and I start talking about stories, I'm like, I want everyone to think back to their middle school or their high school and think about that one or two teachers that you remember. And everyone remembers a teacher or two. And I'm like, think about that teacher for a second. Chances are you remembered that teacher because that teacher told stories. That teacher made the material much more understandable by using a story rather than not. Like, my physics class, I loved my physics class because the teacher always would tell a story to explain this concept. Yeah. Where the chemistry class was like stick a needle in my eye because I could never understand it. And it was just a completely disparate difference of the teachers from using stories and not. So you're right. It's so important.
Yeah. Yeah. And because your goal is you want to meet them where they're at and then move them to where they want to be.
Right.
And
right.
sometimes they don't always express that because they don't understand what's beyond the next ridge.
Right.
So they can't really describe what is over that hill or what's on the summit. They don't know how to describe that to you.
Mm-hmm.
But so you have to come down the mountain. You got to meet them where they're at and then be able to walk them up into that so that there's a clear understanding.
Awesome.
So that's the whole concept of this. Number one is the meeting them where they're at, which we just went through those 3 points. And then the fourth one, or the second part or fourth, however you want to count them,
right.
is you want to continue to move them to where they need to be.
Okay.
And so that's the whole process. Once you do that, you're able to then talk about your products, your services, or anything else because you're answering core needs.
Mm-hmm.
You're answering the core challenges that they're working on rather than just dealing with the surface issues. Because if you know this, if you deal with surface issues, you always get the objections at the end of it. If you deal with the core needs, they say, shut up and take my money.
Right. Exactly. And, I always say, the objections are not, sales reps always say, oh, I got all these objections from the customer. I'm like, no, the customer didn't come up with the objections. You handed the customer the objections. They came from you. They didn't come from the customer because you said so many things or didn't say so many things that made the customer feel uncomfortable and uncomfortable. And when you're not comfortable, you come up with objections. Simple as that. So
100%. 100%.
Go ahead. Because I want to get into
because this leads to the results, and there's 4 results that you're going to get, and you have to be
cool. Yeah, fire away. Yep.
All right. Result number 1.
All right.
Some of them are going to mock you.
Yeah.
Flat out, they're going to mock you right to your face. They're going to be very rude, and they're going to mock you. Result number 2, they're going to question you. Like, is that really the way that it is? Some will talk about you behind your back. And this especially goes with your teaching, especially new concepts. It's always going to be that way.
Mm-hmm.
And the last one is some will end up believing and becoming your tribe, becoming your clients. And that's just going to be the way it is. You're never going to have 100% buy-in. It's never going to happen.
Never going to happen. Right. Why would you say they would mock you? Are those people that are just not willing to talk about their journey, or are they just, that's their personality? Why would there be mockers there?
How much time do we have?
Answer that as quickly as possible.
The basic thing is this. There are some really egotistical, narcissistic type individuals in the world that only care about themselves being right. Mm-hmm. And even if they're wrong, they will fall on their sword trying to do it and attempting to prove that they are right. Okay. That's the shortest version that I can give you, because it's just going to happen that there are some people that are not your clients, that do not resonate with you. And no matter what, they've already got their mind made up before you even start to speak or before you start to teach.
Right.
In your sales, you're going to run into them. Sometimes we used to call them tanks. We used to, they're just like, boom, they're always going to be adversaries from the time you walk in the door to the whatever.
Right.
Inside of your business, these are tend to be your toxic type individuals that have been scorned or hurt. In your teaching, sometimes they're people that have gone through an abuse or some type of other hurtful situation that they're not there yet. They're not able to. And so they're going to just mock you right to your face.
That's interesting stuff. So those are the 4 results. And I love the fact that this process will get you to, one of the results is having the client that you want, having your perfect client, having your tribe, because those are the people you want to work with. You don't want to work with clients who are not aligned with you, because it'll just lead to frustration, aggravation, and clients that you can't make happy.
And that is the biggest thing. Well, I'll say early on in my sales career history and my business, I wanted everybody.
Right.
I wanted to make sure everybody was coming in. I was going to please everybody. I was going to work on every level. And I quickly found out how dangerous and how deadly that could be to your business. I had to fire clients. I have to let them go because their goals or their moral values do not line up with where I'm at.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And sometimes they want to, quite frankly, rip people off. And I'm not comfortable with that. And we've got to go our separate ways. I'm not going to teach you techniques and styles if you're going to go and rip people off. I don't want to be associated with that.
Right.
So that's some of the questioning, some of the other people talking about you. And I've had that. I've had that happen. Talk about you behind your back because you have separated or you're teaching something different that doesn't line up with their core values. That all can happen. And you have to be okay with that, knowing full well you were called to serve those that are your clients. You're called to serve those that fall into your core beliefs and align with your core values.
Tim, I love that, because you're so right, because there are for great example, I'm doing some consulting work with this owner of a company, and she's been telling me there's this client that she has, or potential client, that wants to do work with her, and he keeps beating her over the head over the price. And she's like, what should I do? She's already spent hours on emails, and he's not even a client yet. And I said to her, I said, you see what's happening right now? You're considering lowering your price just to have him as a client. I said, he's not even a client yet, and he's driving you crazy. I said, imagine when he is. I said, stick to your guns and walk away. And she did. And she was like, felt proud as a pig. She's like, I never felt so, what's the word? Encouraged and empowered. Thank you. That's the word. I never felt so empowered because I actually said no. And it felt great to say no. And I tell reps that, and you're doing the same thing. It's okay to not accept a client. If you don't feel it. It's uniform.
100% it is. And I have done that in the past, and it always ends up in a sour relationship where they're blaming me for all of their failures.
Right.
Exactly. I've had that happen multiple times. And after that happened 2 or 3 times, I made a determination that I am not going to, if you don't do what I tell you and you just choose to do your own thing, I don't care if I've got a contract with you or not. I'm done. We're done, because you're not following that, and you're not taking, and you're not learning. You're just going to go do your own thing, and then it's inevitably going to be my fault. Right. That's how you're going to act.
If you don't, when in doubt, blame Tim.
Yeah. But it's the truth, though. And I had some friends and some people, and that I was working with, and they didn't do it. And then all of a sudden, it's like, that guy doesn't know what he's talking about. You didn't do anything.
Right. Yeah, exactly. And then you start doubting yourself, and you feel bad, and you're like, wait a minute. I know who I am. I know my core values. And this guy is trying to, take me where I shouldn't be. And you start doubting yourself. You really do. And you're like, you know what? No, this is not going to happen. But it takes experience to do that. It's hard to tell a young rep to do that, to say it's okay to say no to a client. Or if they're, they need to hit quota, and they know they got this pain in the ass client, and they have to, it's a tough thing, but trust us. The two of us have a lot of experience here on this screen. In the long run, you will absolutely benefit by dealing with clients that fit in your values and you want to work with. So, yeah.
Oh, I mean, when you start dealing with those clients that you don't like or don't line up, that's when you start to question, like you just said, your value. It shakes your confidence. Mm-hmm. And you are unsure of the steps forward and how to move forward.
Right. Or you start doubting yourself, like, well, what did I do wrong here? Why is this guy upset with me? And you didn't do anything wrong. It's just the personality that you're working with.
100%. 100%.
So can we slide into confidence now? Because I want to segue this.
Please.
Yeah, because we got a great question. Normally I wait till the end of the podcast for the question, but since you want to talk about this, I want to segue with the question. So this is from Cindy in Manhattan, New York. And thank you for sending the question in, Cindy. So Cindy writes, and this is a perfect timing for this. She writes, I have trouble with being confident when entering a sales conversation and even with coworkers. What can I do to get better at that? So I'm going to toss that to you. You're the expert in that, Tim. So how would you answer Cindy's question?
I was going to wait and see what you had to say, because I was like, oh, that's awesome. No. And let me share this too, because I truly believe this with all my heart, is especially with you, Alan, and the way that I know you from the last couple of months. A lot of what we are going to say here in the next couple of minutes, I believe our principles and our foundations are going to be exactly the same. Mm-hmm. It's just the way that we communicate from our experiences that is going to be a little bit different. So somebody may resonate with what I say, but there's also going to be people that resonate with your answers as well. This topic, and it's interesting that this topic, because you told me that question in the green room, we were talking about it. This topic I have spoke on specifically with 3 different clients over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Wow.
Whether it was their confidence that was lacking, or the other one was the fact that they hired a sales individual that was lacking confidence, and that confidence translated into they wouldn't ask for the sale, they wouldn't go up and talk, they wouldn't pitch, they wouldn't follow the sales system, because they just didn't believe that they had the skill set or the ability to be able to do that. Mm-hmm. And so what it came down to, and I gave there's 4 steps in this process. So whether you are the leader teaching your sales guy, whether it's yourself walking through this, whomever, these are very practical and I don't want to say unfortunately, but they take a little bit of work. So it's not something that's going to be an instant change, although I've had people that instantly change just by taking a couple of these things. But it's all four of them put into sequence that's going to allow you to be able to do this. So the first one is what I call discovering your purpose. In that, it's embracing the call of what you are really, truly intended to do. When I was entering into the coaching aspect, I did not want to be a coach. I didn't want to work in consulting because I had watched so many gurus and so many people out there just rip people off, not be good. It was just really bad. The coach word had a bad connotation for me.
Okay.
And it wasn't until I discovered my purpose of how many people can I leave an impact on as I touch them, as I communicate. And by discovering that purpose, it gave me the ability to say, regardless of what the connotation of that word is or the pressure of society, I am called to leave an impact on my family, my wife, my kids, on those that I'm coaching, consulting with, and then anybody else that I come in contact with. Whether it's in my community and I meet a guy for coffee or it's a small business, whatever that is, I need to leave that impact. So I have to embrace that purpose. Now, the thing is, a purpose, a lot of people talk about purpose, and we could go down and talk about this for at least an hour or more. But let me define it this way. A lot of people look at this and they say, I need to know my why, or I need to know like the core of everything of who I am. There's a lot of confusion out there. So let me just define it in this part. Finding your purpose is like finding the North Star. It is the guide. It's not something that you're ever going to attain.
Right.
It's not an objective. It's not something that is achievable within the next 48 hours, the next 6 months, the next 3 years. Your purpose is something that becomes a lifelong endeavor. So when I look at that and I say, my purpose is to leave an impact on the people that I touch, that doesn't mean I'm ever going to be fulfilled until the day I'm at 6 feet under. I'm going to continue to pursue that purpose. I'm going to continue to become a better teacher, a better coach, a better consultant, and add to the experiences to be able to help more individuals. So the purpose part of that is being able to learn what it is that you're fulfilling in a lifelong endeavor. So discovering your purpose is absolutely critical to be able to start building your confidence, because once you find that, man, now you've got that clear direction. You know exactly when you're on that ship and you're driving, you're finding a new Americana or wherever it is, you know exactly where you're going. That there gives you such internal confidence that if you get fired from a job because something happened, you fail at a business, whatever that ends up happening, you still have your purpose. Nobody can take that away from you. That becomes your journey, your process. And again, like I said, your lifelong endeavor. So number one is purpose. Yeah. Now, if you're teaching, if you're the leader and you're trying to teach one of your sales guys or you're trying to teach one of your employees, the number one book that I'm going to start recommending, or that I would recommend, is called The Dream Manager, and it's by Matthew Kelly. And again, going back to what we talked about at the beginning, that's why I love this transition. You as a leader on a level 6, 7, or 8, and you can understand some of these concepts. If you go to your level 1 tech, the guy that's on the ground doing the work, or your sales guy that just came in, and you say, well, my friend, you need to find your purpose. They're going to roll their eyes, walk away, and say, what the heck is wrong with this guy? They don't understand that. And so what I'm saying is use the Dream Manager as a step, the first step, because you can cultivate the dream. What is it, something that they can achieve? That gives them a purpose for a short term, but it teaches them how to look into the future, put a plan together to be able to achieve that dream, thus, therefore, building more confidence to be able to eventually find their purpose, because you're not going to just immediately help them find their purpose in a couple of hours. It's a process, it's a growing and a maturing in their attitude, their mental capacities as a critical thinker, not as, you know what I'm saying there, but yeah, it allows them to mature in how they are able to be more proactive rather than reactive. So step number one is finding and discovering your purpose. Please feel free to add.
Well, you know what I was going to say, when I did that, it was when I wrote my book and I sat down and I'm like, okay, what is my purpose? What is my life's mission statement? You're right. It wasn't something that you can figure out in 10 minutes. But what I did, I wrote it and I left it by my nightstand and I looked at it every day and I rewrote it and I changed the word and I rewrote it again. And I probably rewrote the damn thing 30 times over 2 or 3 months until it really like resonated with me. And then that was my kind of my purpose for a while, but it also changes sometimes it's like, you know what, I'm going to adjust this now because things have happened in my life that, instead of going north by northwest, I'm going, a little further north this time, but it's okay because, you as long as you're looking at it all the time. And when you're done with your points, I'm going to answer Cindy in the way I would kind of tell people to work on confidence, but I want you to finish first. So,
okay. All right. So the second one is setting up for wins. And I have to reframe this as well, because everybody is always looking at how much did I do? How many sales did I bring in? Did I close let's say it's $10,000 a week that I have to close. That's not the wins that I'm talking about. I'm not talking about, did you meet your closing percentage or something else that was out there? What I'm talking about is setting up for wins is finding your daily actions, your habits, and your routines that's going to allow you to put some wins underneath of your belt. And the way that this works out in regards to your sales, it's not looking at, did I close $10,000? It's, did I make 5 phone calls today? It's not, did I close the biggest account ever? It's, did I follow up with all of those proposals that I sent out? And am I doing that in a timely manner? Those are the wins that you want to be able to set up for. Put that out there. So this is really, really important, especially as a leader, teaching a new sales guy, bringing a new sales guy in, or even some of your techs or anybody else that's out there. You want to have something that is, there's no doubt in my mind that they can achieve that. I know that they can make 5 phone calls. I know that they can follow up on the estimates that are giving. I know that they can do that. I know that they don't have any control over whether or not that customer says yes or no, but I know you have control on making those 5 phone calls.
Right.
So setting up for wins is those mini daily actions, those habits, and those routines that you have to get into. And you can define that however you want to, but you've got to set yourself up for those wins, both on your personal life as well as in your business, sales, wherever you end up using that. Step number 3 is reframing your mindset. Now, again, this is where I stole it a little bit from you, because I heard you on I don't remember if it was a video. I can't remember where it was, but reframing the mindset. And so I got to give honor to you, right? But it's the fact that society is always constantly telling us to look at our numbers, look at the totals, look at the goals. What's your closing percentage? Reframing the mindset, especially for some of the young sales guys that are stepping in, they're looking at the closing ratio as an I got you kind of a thing versus the actual I'm helping. Right. And then I talked with 3 or 4 different companies, and what we did is we reframed this based on their core values. So one of them is, are we leaving an impact on our society? Are we leaving an impact on our customers? So instead of saying close ratio, they say impact ratio. How many people have I left an impact on?
That's awesome.
The other company is talking about they want to help their customers and they want to meet their needs. So they're using the word help. Or I can't remember exactly what words you used, Alan, so I apologize.
It was in my book. The first 2, it's kind of the core value of my entire book. It's called Changing Your Mindset from Helping to Selling. And then to do that, to change the culture in a company and really the culture in your own mind, is say, instead of saying closing percentage, you say it's a helping percentage. And in most sales situations, you can say it's a helping percentage because your goal is to solve a problem. Therefore, you're going to help the customer. But one of the videos I did, you mentioned videos, and it popped in my head, and it was one of the ones I got a lot of views on LinkedIn. It was called "Your Customer Is Not Prey," and I said that if an alien came down from Mars and went to the hunting lodge meeting on Tuesday night, and then went to the sales meeting on Wednesday morning, that alien would be thinking they're talking about the same exact prey.
Yep.
Because that's how salespeople are trained, is to get the customer, to close that customer. And that's the mindset that has to change. It has to go from closing, getting, conquering to helping. Because once you do that, not only is the customer going to feel better, you actually feel better as a salesperson. You start liking what you're doing a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's part of your mindset. You're reframing your mindset. The last one that I have is act as if. And I have to pause here because there are 2 different ways to take this. And there's one way that I absolutely hate, which is the inauthentic way, where people pull on something that is manipulative, something that is, they are acting as if, and they have no true, genuine heart. I don't know how else to say it other than that. Because there is definitely this aspect of, there are some times when we have to step into a role and be confident in that role and act as if we have that confidence, even if we're shaking in our boots. And I learned this very young, and I'm going to use this as the illustration because I think this will best illustrate. When I was a kid, we used to roam the halls. And I especially in high school, it was just like, that was the thing to do, and see if you could roam the halls, and see who could roam the halls the longest, right? And I learned very quickly, as I would go out and do this with my friends and my buddies and whatever, there was this one pass. And if you could go through this one pass where the principal, the office secretary, and everybody else was in, if you could get through that hallway and not be stopped, you were like the king. You were the man. This is all. And what I realized is, if I walked as if I had a purpose, as if I knew exactly what my goal was and where I was going, if I walked with that confidence, nobody would stop me.
Wow, that's a great analogy.
But I would watch my buddies. They'd kind of go in and be like, sneaking around, Lincoln, kind of just, all this other stuff. And everybody like, hey, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Why are you here? And immediately these questions started to get asked. But if I walk through with purpose, I could get through that hall every time. And I get on the end of it, and everybody like, oh, how'd you do that? But it was because I was acting as if I had that purpose and if I had that direction. And so that's what I'm saying in this part of, when you act as if, by going back to your purpose and acting like I have the right to be able to be here. I have the right to be able to share my stories, to be able to do this. And not only do I have the right, I have the obligation to help somebody else. And that's the part where you act as if, even though you may be shaking in your boots, you act as if because you have that purpose, you've reframed your mindset, you know exactly the direction that you're going, and that confidence builds because you're acting in a purpose, in an authentic way, not the manipulative way, but it gives you the ability to do it. Now, the one trick, and there's another book called Alter Ego Effect, and that was written by Todd Herman. He talks a little bit about this. Some people, they need to be able to put on, let's say they put on a pair of glasses. That's his illustration. Or you put on a certain shirt, or you put on a uniform. When you put that uniform on, you accept that role. We do it all the time. We come home, we're a dad, we're a husband, we're a father, whatever that role is. You take that one hat off, you put the other hat off. We do this all the time in an authentic manner. There's no reason why you, as a salesperson, as a business owner, cannot just pull on that hat, pull on that persona, acting as if according to your purpose and according to your authenticity, and be able to walk right through that hallway and never be stopped and never be questioned.
That is so. Have you ever heard of Amy Cuddy and her TED Talk?
I have not.
She check it out. You and I are so aligned in all of this stuff, and it's one of my favorite TED Talks, and it's called "Fake It Till You Make It." And it basically, it's exactly what you're saying. It's like you have to, even if you're shaking in your boots, you have to fake it, because when you do that and you are aligned with what you want to do and all of that stuff you're talking about, you actually start to build that confidence, and then you make it. You're like, you are that person that you were pretending to be because you filled it psychologically. So it really, for those who have not seen it, check it out. It's Amy Cuddy, Cuddy, TED Talk called Fake It Till You Make It. It's really good.
I'm so glad you framed it the way you did, because I hear so many people about this fake it till you make it kind of a thing, and they're just pretenders.
It's a very specific fine line. Like, when you say that, people are like, oh, no, so I'm going to fake who I'm going to be. Like, no, it's not about faking it. It's about, you being confident in being who you are and being confident in helping that person, even though you're scared to do that. Have that purpose. Exactly. Have that purpose that what you're there to do. So that's tremendous stuff. And I'm going to add to. Did that answer?
That's the 4. Yep. That's the 4.
Cindy, I hope you were taking notes on that, because that's some pretty darn good stuff for confidence right there. Here's what I would add, and I'm not a growth strategist or psychologist or have Tim's kind of experience, but I do experience in sales, and I think this has helped me from a confidence standpoint. And it's as simple as time management and organization makes you a confident person. It makes you stop feeling disorganized, and I do that 2 ways. I have at the end of my book, I have an acronym called ACMA. And it means action, calibrate, motivate, and adulate. And the C, calibrate, means once a week, on Sunday nights, my phone pops up at 10 p.m. and it says the word calibrate. And I stop everything I'm doing and I think about, all right, am I on the right path? Are all my weights and measures working properly? Are my instruments measured and doing the right thing? Am I on the path I need to be on to go back to my purpose? And I think about that once a week, because if you don't, what I found is you'll drift off the side of the road. All of a sudden you'll be driving on a dirt road somewhere before you realize it, and then you got to get back. So calibrate once a week helps me. And then the other thing I do is I assign a time to everything I do, even my tasks. So it's people normally have, okay, this is their schedule to meet with people. And then these are my to-do lists. But the to-do lists never have a time attached to them.
That's true.
So you just like, all right, I got 12 things to do today. Which ones am I going to do? And then then you're on Facebook, and then you like do number 2, and then you do number 4, and then you're off to have lunch. You're all over the place. Although you're making your meetings, your to-do list is making you feel disorganized. So instead of just having a to-do list, say, okay, I need to talk to Tim today, or I need to work on the notes for my podcast. That would be a to-do list. I would just put 10 o'clock, work on notes for podcast, to 10:30. Then I would do it. It's in my calendar. So if you put your to-do list in your calendar as well as your meetings, I am telling you, it's the best thing I ever did. I started it a couple months ago, and it not only kind of changes your life because you just feel like you're just empowered to do everything, but it builds you confidence that you're doing everything that you should be doing. So that would be my suggestion for Cindy.
Yeah.
Tim said.
Love that. Yeah, I love that. I do the same thing. I call it time blocking, but it's basically essentially the same thing.
Yeah.
So I only do coaching Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Monday is my content days, and I've got things blocked out. And then Friday is my follow-up for some of the consulting things, and I sometimes have to go back through with all of the vendors and the developers and all that kind of stuff. So that's kind of like my follow-up day on Friday. But Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday are the only days that I really do any kind of consulting or any kind of coaching. And I block that. Because if I don't, then they would eat up all my time.
Right. And I found, like, when I'm doing, like, say I was, I do some marketing work as well. So I've been working on this company's website. Normally, I would just have it as a to-do list, work on website today, and I may not get to it. But if I put down at 10:30 to 12, I'm working on the website, 2 things happen. 1, I'm going to do it. And 2, my calendar's blocked off, so no one pops in there and bothers me as well. So it's really a cool thing to do. If anybody takes stuff away, take that away, take what Tim said away. Those 4 things are pretty special as well. Well, holy crap, we're over 50 minutes already. This has been this has been awesome, Tim. So tell everybody where they can find you if they want to get, shout out and need some help, or they just want to have a conversation, hook up with you on LinkedIn, where they find you.
So to have a direct conversation, oh golly, I'd like to say it was LinkedIn, but the problem is right now I'm thinking about my LinkedIn message box and it's about 20 deep, and I've got to figure out how to contact them. So I'm like, oh, wait a minute, maybe I better not share that. But LinkedIn is definitely the way that I share almost everything that I do, everything from the podcast to the articles that I write. So follow me on there. But the other way I would say is go to timcroll.com, and then there's going to be a contact form on there. Find the contact form and send me a message, because those are the email I'll get to. I promise you I'll get to the email. I'm not 100% sure I'm going to get to the LinkedIn message. I'd love to say that, but I'm not sure. So
that's okay. Honesty is better. So it's Tim, Tim Croll, Croll, as in C-roll. So timcroll.com. And again, he's on LinkedIn, and he's an awesome guy, as you can see. And he does respond. He responds to me anyway. So at least I think he'll respond to you as well. Timmy, thanks very much for joining me tonight. This has been awesome.
Appreciate it, Alan.
Hopefully I'll see you on Friday at the networking function. Thanks for taking time out tonight. And everyone, we're going to say goodbye. Thanks for joining me again on Marketing and Sales Over Cocktails. Again, the website is marketingandsalespodcast.com. Send me a question through the contact section. And just like Cindy in Manhattan, Cindy's getting a free copy of my book, signed by me, because we read her question tonight. All right, everyone, thanks for joining, and we'll see you again next time.